My charge today is to talk on, chondral injuries and osteochondral injuries, how to differentiate that, and give you a flow of how to manage them. And in particular, my other colleagues, Dr. Vikram and Deepak, will talk you in at large of how to manage them specifically. I'll just give you an overview of what that can be. So when we search the literature, the basic difference between these two groups of pathology is 25 years. Osteochondral defects were started to be studied in 1952, whereas the chondral defect started 25 years later. So chondral defect is much young. What is the prevalence of these injuries? It is around 35 to 60%. Most of them will be asymptomatic unless they come to you with other concomitant problems. Cartilage, as all of us know, has got no vascularity. It is aneural and alymphatic. So how they present to you in clinic is entirely different. Basically, a chondral injury will be seen in young individuals with trauma, and you would have forgotten that he had really a trauma, whereas osteochondral injury generally will be seen a little elderly age group with a massive trauma or sometimes a degenerative pathology. All of these will have a significant challenge to meet because the mantra nowadays is to have your long knee as long as possible throughout your life rather than replacing it with any other metal. This is a cross section of a cartilage which is seen from at least 1 month of your age to at around 8 years. You can see that gradually the vascularity of this cartilage wanes off, and then we are trying to replace a cartilage tissue which is really avascular. Is it possible? Or what are the means of doing that? We will see it in next couple of slides. The cause for these problems are direct trauma, overuse, or sometimes malalignment and malrotations can predispose a particular knee either in a young or an older individual to these kind of injuries. Mind you, the knee has been basically classified like the road traffic signals. All of you know there can be a green knee wherein you are okay to do knee procedures to salvage the knee. But if you have a red flag that is there in the knee in the form of inflammation where the cartilage lesions are big, with ligamentous instability, degeneration of the meniscus and so on and so forth, then you are in for a challenge. Unless you manage those things, managing a cartilage will be difficult. Cartilage classification, all of us know. A chondral lesion stays above the bone, above the subchondral bone, and an osteochondral lesion does involve the subchondral bone. That is the basic difference. And when it is grade 3 and grade 4, that is when we step in and try to manage surgically. Otherwise, there is an option of managing them conservatively as well. What happens to these cartilages when the vascularity is really less? Here you can see through the flow chart that has been given to you, when the vascularity of a segment of a cartilage is compromised, you can see that it goes in for avascular necrosis. It has got an inherent propensity to heal in most of the cases, especially in young individuals. And in elderly individuals, if it is compensated by a trauma or an insult of a trauma is there to the knee, then it becomes devascular and separates out from the parent bone, and that is how it looks on the histology that has been shown to you on the screen here. This classification every one of us know. That is when the 50% of the cartilage or the depth of the cartilage is involved, that is when we do a surgical procedure. Less than 50%, there are options of managing it conservatively or substituting it with the tissue or a biologics that will propel the knee for a longer period of time. So do X-rays help you to diagnose chondral injuries or osteochondral injuries? More often than not, we tend to miss them because on the X-ray it is rarely picked up. But if at all it will be picked, it is in a later part of the stages where you will see cystic changes or the subchondral sclerosis, or when it becomes a loose body with the bone. MRIs do help us in picking up these lesions because we do see subchondral edema, cystic changes and irregularity in the surface of the cartilage, and then that is where we realize that there is something not right with the knee. When we treat them, there is a possibility that we should look for the treated area, whether there is any edema around the treated area, whether there is a fluid cleft that has come around, or if there is any cystic changes that are developing the treating area, and whether the cartilage that you are replaced or treated has integrated with the native tissue. Similarly here, if you fix it with a biological device or any metallic device, you should look for the uniformity in the cartilage that is restored with the parent bone. When you do a microfracture, which is a go-to procedure for everyone, you should go back and have a look at, at least by doing an MRI, saying that there is some signal changes that is, compatible with the normal side cartilage that is there in the bone otherwise. This is a very important investigation that you can ask your radiologist if they are well versed of doing it. T2 mapping cartilage. Okay, there is a relaxation time which is marked by the green and red zone that you can see, indicating that the normal water content and the proteoglycan content of the cartilage is good. But when you treat a cartilage or when the cartilage is injured or insulted, that is when the water content and the proteoglycan content decreases and the relaxation time increases in the imaging, and you can see it that it is marked with the blue marking of the image. This is how a loose body will look floating in the knee without any bone that is attached to it. Maybe the patient comes to you with locking or sometimes pain, and he will have ebb and flow in his symptom presentation. Suddenly one fine day he will say that his knee is locked, very painful. He will curse you for not treating him well. If you lose him for coming for surgery, then sometime he'll unlock his knee by himself and he'll be forgotten again for a long period of time till the loose body again locks his knee. So nature has got a capacity to heal itself. You see that there is a fibrocartilage on the undersurface of the cartilage, and this patient never came back to us after removing this loose body. Probably he's doing well, I guess. Sometimes you will have a malalignment of the limb with a cartilage lesion. You need to treat both, and then we treat both in the longer period of time, they will have better results. Either by doing an osteotomy or by doing a microdrilling, you can follow up this patient with the cartilage procedure for good results. Surgeries that can be done for chondral defects, as in this case, you can see a cartilage hinge that is there in a 13-year-old schoolboy who fell down after cycling, who was fixed with a biopin and a biologic tissue which is in the form of blood clot which is derived from the patient's own tissue. Marrow stimulation is a well-known procedure for cartilage procedures. Osteochondral transfer is a go-to procedure for massive lesions, and the good results are there when you use these kind of procedures in isolated cases. Allografts are now available in the country. You can have access. Locally made, locally available companies are there who will have access to you if you have approached them to find large defects to be filled by an allograft. Juvenile particulate cartilage also is a way of managing cartilage defects in the bone. Then off-the-shelf materials are available for you to treat it in a way that it can be treated to manage cartilage defects in a large way. Having said that, what is a go-to procedure in our setup? We do a two-stage procedure of autologous chondrocyte implantation. Our results are great, which we'll be presenting in the subsequent conferences in the meeting in the IAS. So what is the take home for all of you who are sitting here? This is the algorithm that I want you to take home and practice in your clinical setting. Make sure that the patient's BMI is documented, his general health is managed, other red flags that I mentioned in the beginning are ruled out, and then based on the lesion, whether it is in the femoral condyle or in the patella or trochlea, managed according to the size of the lesion. The go-to procedures will be a biological procedure initially if the lesions are small. If the lesions are little more than 2 centimeters square, you can opt for a microfracture or an allograft or an autograft transplant for these lesions. But what is the evidence that is available in the literature? Do all these procedures that I mentioned have got value, or even that the people are discussing in the market that yes, this tissue works, you inject this will work, you put this solution it will work on the knee joint or the cartilage. Only 4 procedures in the literature for a small and a large lesions have got evidence at large, that is microfracture, that is OATS and allograft transplant. These are the 3 big procedures that have got great results in the literature comparatively, and level evidences are available to manage your cases. So when we manage these patients by the procedures that I have shown you, do they return to sport? Have they got any value? Will they come back to playing? Yes. OATS is the commonest procedure that you see the patients coming back to sport at a larger number, followed by the allograft and then the autologous chondrocyte implantation. Other biological fractures and microfractures have got its limitations, which have been mentioned in the literature. I urge you people to go and have a look at that. So to summarize, if there are cartilage lesions, you can do a chondroprotective procedure or a chondro facilitation procedure. If there are larger cartilage lesions, I urge you to look at doing a microfracture or a Oates procedure using either autograft or an allograft.